The book of Acts, chapter 20, verses 1 through 6. When the uproar had ended, Paul sent for the disciples and, after encouraging them, said goodbye and set out for Macedonia. He traveled through that area, speaking many words of encouragement to the people, and finally arrived in Greece, where he stayed 3 months. Because the Jews made a plot against him, just as he was about to sail for Syria, he decided to go back through Macedonia. He was accompanied by Sopater, son of Pyrrhus from Berea, Aristarchus and Secundus from Thessalonica, Gaius from Derbe, Timothy also, and Tychicus and Trophimus from the province of Asia. These men went on ahead and waited for us at Troas. But we sailed from Philippi after the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and 5 days later joined the others at Troas, where we stayed 7 days. This is the word of the Lord.
Well, good morning. If you have your Bibles, open to Acts 21 through 6. And we are following Paul this summer on our little summer road trip, on the third missionary journey of Paul. And he's been in Ephesus for the last 3 weeks with us. He was there multiple months. We saw what happened in Ephesus, but now he's leaving. He's heading for Greece. He's heading for Macedonia after the Lord had spoken to him on where to go. And the thing that we're going to really focus on today, if you have your word, open up to or look at verse 4. I want you to get your pen out. You can steal one of these La Jolla Christian Fellowship pens. They're super quality. Just steal them. They are for you. Take one of those, and if you would circle, or let's go to verse 4. He was accompanied by. He was accompanied by. It goes on to give a list of who he was accompanied by. Today's main point is to really paint a vivid picture, landscape for you, to say that who you are accompanied by in life is going to largely determine your destination and your trajectory. Who is accompanying you along your journey? For me, when I was 19, I was surrounded by drinking buddies and other types of substance buddies. By the time I was 25, that had dramatically changed. And I had men and women in my life who said, who you spend your time with matters. Who you surround yourself with in the closest, most intimate decisions of your life, who you journey with and the things that matter to you most is utterly important. And I made a decision at that point to kind of do an inventory, to kind of look around and say, hey, what relationships are going to be beneficial to me? What relationships are going to keep me sober? What relationships are going to build into me? What relationships can I build into? And so this word here, accompanied by this phrase, matters. And that's what I want to put before you today. I really want to challenge you to think through your strategic relationships. This doesn't mean that we edit out every single person who has need or somebody who's struggling. We don't do that. But I'm talking about those people that really become the cement, the cauterizing effect in your life and the things that you want to do. Do you have a handful of friends that you know you can count on, that you know that will be there for you, that you know that you will be there for, and that are on mission with you? About 10 years ago, there was a term in the church called life on life. We're living life together, and that term's kind of out of fashion now, but that's what I want to put before you and really challenge you with the idea to take an accounting of who you are surrounding yourself with. And I'm not just talking about your family. I'm talking about people outside of your family. So in verse 4, he was accompanied by Ralph Waldo Emerson, said this, our chief want is someone who will inspire us to be what we know we could be. Well, I somewhat agree with him. I think our chief want is to know God, to fill that God-shaped void in our life. And I was looking at statistics this week. It says the number one reason people come to church is to have an experience, a spiritual experience, to grow in spirituality, their inner self, to have their soul, to do basically some soul work. The number two reason was for social connections and spiritual social connections. So I believe that what he says here is really true. Once again, Emerson says, our chief want is someone who will inspire us to become what we know we could be. Inspiration. Inspiration, the word here in the Greek that we're going to look at today is encouragement, two different types of encouragement, but someone who it inspires. Inspiration goes a long way. I know that with my sermons, I want to be 50% challenge. We want to challenge you, right? We want to challenge you to that next level. There should be about 1% of just uncomfortability with what I say. It should be like, oh, man, that's tough. That's tough to get to that place. But then the other half has to be inspiration. You can't just give people constant challenge with no inspiration in their life. And so I'm always trying to balance the call to challenge and the call to exhortation and encouragement and inspiration. And so you see that, and that's one thing I try to do here in the scriptures. You can easily grow a church, a huge church, with just giving inspiration. There are some people that just want to be told beautiful, fluffy things that tickle their ears, and you can grow a church. There's people that are looking for that. And you can also grow it with just a challenge, constant challenge, or constantly clubbing people over the head with what the Bible says they need to do to get a little bit better. You can grow churches because some people are just looking for a parent. They're looking to be told what to do, and other people just want a hug. They just want to be sent in the right direction. And finding that balance is something that Paul did and something that Jesus did. I would say after Christ, Paul's greatest asset was the encouraging relationships he surrounded himself. His greatest asset. His greatest asset wasn't a home, it wasn't his income, it wasn't his books, his understanding of Scripture. Other than Christ, the Godhead, the Holy Spirit, other than his relationship with God, if you follow the life of Paul, you will see that Paul was a people person. It's easy to look at Paul and be like, oh, he's always doing this, and because he has some hard letters, right? He says some hard things. But if you look, it is impossible to miss the fact that he was a people person if you look at his relationship. We're going to look at that today and say perhaps his greatest asset was the encouraging relationships he surrounded himself with. So 2 points today. They're going to help you. They're going to help you define who you want to be and who you want to be with and who you want to partner with in life to get to that place where God has called you. First one is understanding encouragement. We've got to understand encouragement. We want to be in encouraging relationships, right? We want to be in inspiring relationships. You want to look at your friend. You want to look at the people you surround yourself with and say, I want to be like that. You know, I want to be like that person. There's something that they bring to the table that I want to be like, and they inspire me to something greater, to something better, to a higher calling. You want to be around people that inspire you. I will say, as a father or a mother, that who you surround yourself with outside of your family is greatly going to affect the raising of your family. Who you spend time with, how they challenge you, looking at the ways that they live their life, looking at the ways that they raise their children is going to greatly affect what happens within the four walls of your home. It's going to affect what happens in your business. It's incredibly important. So the first one is understanding encouragement. We're going to look at that. What does encouragement actually mean? I think it's different than the English word makes it look. And then second is investing in relationships. Relationships are an investment. Relationships just don't happen. You can have buddies, you can have friends, people you pal around with, but a relationship is something you need to invest with. I heard someone once say that you never know if a relationship is solid until you make it through your first conflict. That conflict, not that you're looking for conflict, not that you're looking for chaos, but if you can make it through a conflict and then you are able to sustain, it creates perseverance in that relationship. And you know that when the chips are down, that person will be there because when they were offended or whatever the issue was that happened, you were able to work it out and they came to the table to be there and meet you in that place. So the first one is understanding encouragement. And the next one is investing in relationships. And it is an investment that pays off. All right, understanding relationships. Go to verse 1. Encouragement, Verse 1. Now remember there had been a ruckus because of Paul and the people who had created a riot in order because Paul had spoken not against but against the idols that were being sold, and all the craftsmen, Demetrius, we talked about that, had gotten upset and they'd had a riot. Well, the riot's over now. Paul's getting ready to move on. It says, when the uproar had ended, Paul sent for the disciples, and after encouraging them, encouraging them, said goodbye and set out for Macedonia. He traveled through the area speaking many words of what? Encouragement to the people. So we're seeing a bookend. He leaves somewhere with encouragement, and when he arrives to the next place, it's encouraging. It's encouragement. Are you a person of encouragement? Are you a person that brings people to the next level of their understanding of who God has called them to be or what they can be or leaning into their life to believe in someone? Do you love people who believe in you? Have you ever had that coach that believes in you? That coach, and they're not just talking, flattery. I'm not looking for flattery. but someone who is giving literal words of inspiration to say that you can be more than this. Whether it be Pastor Gordon Coulter in my life, or Pastor Jimmy Johnson, or all the different people, that saw me when I was probably at my worst and who believed in me and continued to call me to something greater than myself, to God himself, to say, you can be this, you can do this, you can go to that next level. Don't you love someone who believes in you? Do you want to be the kind of person that believes in people? Or are you a naysayer? I was with my daughter yesterday, and we were out getting some advice on a little project we were doing, and I brought something up to the person, and the person said, "No, well, you don't really want to do that. And kind of went, kind of put it down a little bit. And I said, "Well, what about this?" And there was 4 or 5 of them. And we walked away, and I was thinking, did I read that wrong? But that just didn't feel super encouraging right there. And my daughter was like, "Negative Nancy," and I was like, "Yeah, negative Nancy. I don't mind a little realism." But if you're trying to sell me a product, I need something a little bit beyond negative Nancy. The thing is just being someone who speaks in and actually can see the truth and doesn't just speak flattery. Encouragement is not flattery. It can be, a little bit of it. But flattery is just for the sake of saying, hey, you're amazing. You just kind of speak these fluffy words over them. Encouragement is different. Encouragement has teeth. Encouragement has challenge in it, and it calls people beyond. So let's look at that first word. It says, after encouraging. We said that this is bookended. After encouraging them, the word we're going to look at is apozomi. And then the second word, if you continue on through that verse, it says when he bookended it, that it's speaking after he got to that area, he traveled through that area. In verse 2, he spoke many words of encouragement to the people, and the word there is parakaleo. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the English definition first, before we look at this Greek definition. Because there is a massive difference between how we as Americans or Western civilization people understand the English word encouragement versus this Greek word. These two Greek words really lean in where the English word speaks from afar. Let me show what I mean by that. Here's the English version. To urge by strong, often stirring argument, admonition, advice, or appeal. Advice or appeal. So imagine this. The person that you're encouraging is here, and you're standing off to the side, and you are encouraging them. You're telling, you can do it. Let's go. You are in the stands. You were saying all those important things, and that's great. That can be really, really encouraging. But the Greek word is the next level. Let's look at the 2 words. First is aspazomai. It means to draw to oneself or to embrace. In the Greek word aspazomai, you are no longer, when you're encouraging, you are not just standing from afar, but it's actually the literal metaphor that you have brought them in and embraced them to partner with them in the encouragement. Now, you'll see this in the next word. The next word you'll see when he encourages the people, parakaleo, is to call by one side to entreat. So as opposed to just, hey, you can do it, you're amazing, it's you're amazing, let's enter in and do this together. Let me be a part of what you are doing. Let's partner together. Isn't encouragement the best when it isn't just words from afar, but when someone you care for steps in, they work with you, they care for you. If you're digging a hole, it isn't just, hey, dig that hole, you're doing amazing, but it's like, hey, let me get a shovel. You see, what these 2 Greek words do, aspazomai and parakaleo, is Paul was actually saying, I want to encourage you in the faith, but I want to live the faith with you. I want to suffer through the hardships that you suffer through, not just be from afar. I want to pray and lean in and partner with you in prayer. I want to become part of the solution that this encouragement is speaking to. That is so different than just giving words of encouragement. And this is the relationship that we're looking for when we're looking to discern the relationships in our lives that are encouraging to us and that we are being encouraging to others. Are they the type of relationships where you are in partnership with the encouragement, as opposed to just speaking from afar and tapping out? And so those are 2 words. There are a few things that cement the bonds of relationship, like encouragement. I did some research on encouragement, and I was trying to find what encouragement does in a family, in a business, in relationships. And I came up with 8 core principles. I looked at a bunch of different websites, and I came up with 8 core principles. And the first thing is it boosts confidence. Really important. It's motivational and inspirational. Inspiration is hope. Inspiration is hope, and hope is life. It is motivational. It's inspirational. It improves relationships. When you know someone is encouraging you, especially if they're the kind of people that are, let me get a shovel and not only encourage you, but let me help you. Let me be a part of that. It's motivational. It's improved relationships. It helps with people's emotional well-being, personal growth, and development. But they're my two favorite. Save the best for last. Is that, first of all, they strengthen your resilience. When someone is encouraging you, when someone comes and partners with you on something and helps you to the finish line on that thing, it actually creates perseverance and resilience. We live in a tap-out world. If you don't know that terminology, it's in fighting, in ultimate fighting, or in some kind of wrestling, or where a person can tap the mat 3 times, and it means the other person, that the fight is over, and you give up and you submit. We are living in a culture that encourages tapping out and discourages resilience and perseverance. And resilience and perseverance, the Scripture says, leads to what? Proven character. And then it goes on to say, and proven character leads to what? Hope. You see, this is based on hope. It is leaning into somebody. It is caring for someone. It is speaking those words to change your perspective. And maybe you need to change your perspective. Maybe you need some encouragement. Maybe you need to be the person who changes from being that person who sees the negative consequences on a regular basis. Not that you don't have wisdom, but being a person that speaks life. I want to be in relationships with people that speak life over me. I want to be in relationship with people who give encouragement and joy, and families that speak life over their children. That husbands that speak life over their wives, and wives that speak life over their husband, that speak encouragement. Do you encourage your spouse? Do you encourage your children? Do you encourage your friendships? Do you encourage your business people? I want to be an inspiration and a person who encourages. This builds relationship. And then the final one of the 8 was the ripple effect. The ripple effect. I regularly talk to the staff and the volunteers as we show up here on Sunday morning before you get here and have our meeting. We want to encourage people. We want to inspire people, because then we can create this culture of inspiration that comes not just from coming up with some, idea out of our own head, but we believe that God is hope. And when we encourage, we are encouraging people to lean into the Spirit, that we believe that the end of all of our encouragement, the anchor of everything we say, is based in the reality and the anchor of God. That when you speak, it isn't just words, but it's actually we are giving God to people on a silver platter of encouragement and inspiration. So that's understanding encouragement. That's understanding. The second thing we're looking at today is investing in relationships. I read an interesting quote this week. It said, you are most likely, now this might be true, might not be true. You are most likely the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I chewed on that for a while. I thought, is that true? Well, I don't know if it's completely true. It's kind of hard to discern that exact quote. But I know this, that I was a lot like my friends when I was 17 and 19. And I'm a lot different because of the friends. And if you look at the friends I have when I was 17 and 19 compared to the friends I have at 53 and that I had at 27, many of these have been lifelong friends. Because I made a decision in college at 20 years old that I wanted to find, and this was out of, I think it was John Maxwell's book. He said, you want to fly with eagles. And you might not like that terminology, but he said, you want to look for eagles and you want to fly higher. You want to find some eagles. He said, go find eagles. So this is 1990, like business church language, right? But I just knew. I knew who the eagles were. I knew who they were, and I wanted to be among them. Not for pride or anything else. I wanted to follow Jesus. I wanted to be different than I had been. I didn't want my friendship group to look the same way at 60 as it looked when I was 19. And I see that a lot. Some people, they just get with the pigeons. They're with the pigeons, at 18, just going through the trash. 63 years old, still with the pigeons. You know what I mean? I don't want to be with the pigeons. God bless the pigeons. God made the pigeons. The pigeons, I would just leave it at pigeons. I just knew that I wanted that. You are most likely, it said, the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Show me your friends and I'll show you the future. Go to verse 4. Verse 4 talks about this relational network. We looked at the 2 words of encouragement in the Scripture here and how to change our understanding of that. Now, verse 4 says this, he was accompanied by, and we circled accompanied by because I want you to walk out of here to saying, who's accompanying me? By Sopater, son of Pyrrhus from Berea. And there was a beautiful church in Berea. You can see the culture that comes out of that place. Aristarchus, and Secundus from Thessalonica. Those are some big church cities there. There's some culture happening there. Gaius from Derbe in the Bible, and Timothy. We know Timothy also. And Tychicus and Trophimus from the province of Asia. I would say we tend to undervalue Paul's relational network. We tend to see Paul as this archetypal, bishop, so to speak, an apostle that is above all else, and he's at the tip of the spear, and God might have called him to that. He was definitely a leader at the tip of the spear in regard to bringing the love of Christ and the message of Christ through Asia. He was definitely that. But if you were to ask Paul, Paul would tell you, I never could have done it on my own. And without the people, as you read through the scripture, you'll see this, especially in the book of Acts, without the people that Paul mentions on a regular basis, who went out after he was stoned and picked up the stones, because remember when you were stoned to death, they believed that Paul was stoned to death, that he died, went to the third heaven, and came back. Remember his friends came and prayed for him, and he came back. It doesn't say he came back to life, but we kind of think that's what happened. Nonetheless, he was stoned, and they would put the stones 3 feet high, so they made sure they did a really good job, right? His friends came out and took the stones off him. Then they prayed over him, and he got back up, and he ran away. No, he went back into the city, which is so gnarly of Paul. Paul wouldn't have probably maybe finished up the rest of his ministry if he didn't have some people that would come out and pull the stones off their body and pray for him. He had people that would go and prep things. He had people that would visit him in prison he would write to. He had people that would take over churches. He would have a work, and he'd leave these people in charge. The ministry of the gospel would not have happened if it was just Paul as Superman. Paul was not Superman. He was closer to Frodo. He was closer to having a fellowship of the ring, a fellowship of people who surrounded him that went to partner to make the world a different place. It wouldn't have happened without the people that were going with him. We have to see that. That's why our church community is so important. This is why having, I would say, as part of that 5 or 12 that you surround yourself with outside of your family, I would have some people from this church. I would find some people that you can create the network with. And so we see Paul here. He was accompanied by, I put like north and south, Paul had 2 guiding poles in his life, Jesus and others. Now, that's the greatest commandment, right? Love the Lord your God as yourself, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your what? Your neighbor as yourself. And that's speaking about relationships. Paul had 2 things that he cared about, really only 2 things. 1, Jesus and his gospel. That was number 1. And number 2 was relationships. It didn't talk about having a nice chariot. You never talk about Paul fitting out and pimping out his chariot. You know what I mean? Like he was never like looking for a new house. He was never, he was tent making. He really, as you read the New Testament, there was 2 things that mattered to him: Jesus and others. That's it. We can see that here as we look at it in Paul's 13 New Testament books. So we believe that Paul wrote 13 of the New Testament books. He mentions 88 people in his greetings alone in those 13 books. If you read through his greetings, he's just greeting people all over the place. At one point, he even greets somebody in Rome who was a believer who was living in the house of Caesar. Means the Christians had infiltrated to the highest part of society. He's greeting these people all over the world. He's making relationships. The majority of his time was correspondence. The majority of his time was pouring out and being poured into. He never, put his authority, except if it was for Christ and to preach the gospel, above people. He came alongside people, shoulder to shoulder. That's what he wanted. He wanted to be with people, and he wanted to change the world. Aristarchus, who is mentioned in this passage, is described as a traveling companion and a fellow missionary of Paul. He accompanied Paul on his journey as he was present during Paul's and also was present during his imprisonment in Rome. That's Colossians 4:10, and it'll also be found in Philemon 1:24, where he's mentioned these 3 times. Aristarchus. Man, we all need an Aristarchus, right? Chips are down, falsely accused, you're in prison. Remember, it was cold. Remember, Paul wrote, just bring me a jacket. Think about it. It was cold in those prisons, cold in the winter. He said, just bring me a jacket. Maybe it was Aristarchus that he was writing to, who traveled hundreds of miles. Maybe it was him, maybe it wasn't. Hundreds of miles, one of his friends did, to bring him a jacket and some scrolls. He said, bring me some scrolls, bring me some of my books, and give me a coat just to keep myself warm, and I can stay in this jail for a long time. Do you have an Aristarchus? You have an Aristarchus in your life? God can develop that if we begin to pray and ask God or become that person ourselves. Are you an Aristarchus? Are you a person that makes a difference in other people's lives? You have to be surrounded by eagles. What I mean by eagles is people aren't better than other people. Everyone starts from the ground, and then we decide how high we want to fly. You see, everyone starts from the ground, and then we decide how high we want to fly. And I'll tell you what, when I looked up above me when I was 19 years old, I saw some people soaring. I saw some people that were getting views of vistas from an altitude that I couldn't even comprehend until somebody said, hey, you can fly, you can get to that place, let me fly with you. And we began to do that, and my life began to change dramatically. Thank God I'm not the same 53-year-old, 19-year-old that I was, and it happens all the time. I can't tell you how many 60-year-olds, 17-year-olds I meet. They just, you hit a plateau and you stop growing. Your friends will challenge you to grow more and more and more. Coming into a landing here, I said this: we tend to overvalue the building of homes, wealth, and career while failing to fashion the most crucial and meaningful component of truly living: relationships. Let me say that again. We tend to overvalue the building of our homes, our wealth, our career, while failing to fashion, because they need to be fashioned, the most crucial and meaningful component of truly living: relationships. Relationships are what truly make us alive. My family and I, we like to travel. We like to go places and travel and see things. That's been our value. We say, I'll drive a 2002 Toyota Tacoma so we can travel. And that's our thing. That's our value. And sometimes I've gone back to places where they're not with me. I don't really want to be there. No matter how amazing it is, no matter how good the view is, no matter how great the Airbnb is or whatever I am, if my kids aren't with me, if my family isn't with me, I really don't want to be there. Why? Because the relationship is what makes it meaningful. Granted, it has a meaning on its own, but it's more meaningful when you experience it together and you see that and we work together. 3 practical takeaways. Number 1, pray for and develop the gift of encouragement. Pray for and develop the gift of encouragement. You want to ask God. This is a gift. Encouragement is a gift from God. Spiritual encouragement is a spiritual gift from God that He will give you. It says that He gives gifts to those that go after it. If you sow seeds, He will give more and more. Lean into encouragement. Become an encourager. Just, make a plan for encouragement with your family. And it might start out as platitudes to start because you don't know how to do it. But more and more, you will become that person that when you walk into a room, the room lights up. Those are the people that make a difference when they walk in. So 1, pray for and develop the gift of encouragement. Few things will grow your business, will grow your staff, will grow your family like inspiration and encouragement that is true when you step in. Number 2, choose a group of people to cultivate relationships with. Relationships need to be cultivated, just like a crop. Relationships are difficult. Relationships are hard. They don't just happen. Relationships are something that we want to find some people and begin to pour in with, letters or whatever it is. I remember my brother was really good at relationships. He's still good at relationships. And he would have a letter writing day. This is in the 90s. And he'd have a weekend, actually. He had 100 friends or so in his network. And I remember one time he would write these handwritten letters. I believe it was 100. He wrote, or close to it. In a weekend, he wrote 100 handwritten notes, and then he got the wax stamp because it's super cool, right? And so he would do the wax stamp, and he'd put his, initials on it with a wax stamp, and he'd send a letter to somebody. And I thought, I'll never do that, but that is amazing, It's definitely, But I'm like, that's an investment. What's that? Even today, I think we're going back to the whole letter thing. I've been considering going back to like a paper newsletter sent to your house as opposed to an email. I'll just send you a paper thing in the mail like I used to get in the 80s. That's an investment. People love to be invested in. Use your money. Take someone out to eat. Pay for the meal. Buy coffee. Send them something. Invest. How much do we invest in? How much stuff have we bought on Amazon for ourselves that's sitting in a closet where we can invest in other people? Cultivate a relationship with encouragement. Say, hey, can we meet to pray? Can we go out to eat? Invest, cultivate. So the first thing is pray. Next is cultivate. And the last one is this: partner with those people. Partner with those people to do something meaningful and of value. The people that are closest to you will oftentimes, if they are high flyers, want to do something to make God's creation and world a better place. Find other families that are like you and invest into your school. Find other business people that are like you and invest into your community. Find people like yourself to partner with, to be part of a small group with. That's why we do our small groups here. And once you find that group of people, that's my people. And we're going to change the world together. You see, this was the difference between drinking buddies that I had and friends that I found in college that wanted to make the world a better place and change God's world. You see, when I got with these people, we started planning things because we cared about creation. So if you see all the palm trees as you're going to OB, my friends and I from Point Loma Nazarene planted those plants as you drive into OB off of over the bay. You'll see all those trees. We spent a whole day partnering to do that because we cared about God's creation. They began to go to AIDS hospices with me, and we'd go and paint the walls at the AIDS hospices at different places. I was 19, and I saw these guys, and they were flying so high. And I finally said, I want to be like that. We began to change the world together. It's so easy just to go back to your own little self. What new thing can I get on Amazon? What app can distract me? How much YouTube can I watch? It's so easy to get into that. I just need a little break from the kids, or whatever else. To find a group of people that inspire you, that you can inspire, and fly with them to change the world. So 2 things is pray, cultivate, and partner. That's how we do it. Let's stand if you would.